Hello there, and welcome to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast, where we'll have a little fun, lots of laughs, and discussions on the common sense that needs to be applied to a lot of today's world news issues. And now, the disclaimer. Stay Off My Lawn is not intended as legal, medical, or financial advice. Void where prohibited. No purchase necessary to win. Open to legal U.S. residents 18 or over in the contiguous 48 states. Any resemblance to anyone living or deceased is purely coincidental. Actual price may vary. Only use as directed. Not a member of FDIC. And now, here are your hosts, Mike and Richard.
I like the way you talk to me. Welcome to this week's edition of Stay Off My Lawn. It's December 5th, 2023, and episode 46.
That's it. The big 46 on the way to 50. We've got the count up going.
That's how old Richard and I are. Also, it's just a coincidence.
Oh God, no! I don't want to go backwards. No. That's too far back.
I mean, it's all state of mind. It's all about your mind. Anyway, hey, did you watch any football this weekend? They had all kinds of.
Did I watch anything besides football this weekend?
Did you do anything but sleep, eat, and watch football this weekend is what I should have said.
And that's what we did on Saturday. We had some friends. We went over to their house and we cooked up wings. Him and I were doing the cooking, and I told him he's still working on the cooking stuff. And, they turned out really good. So we watched, we have a small NAIA school, and they are in the national finals. They are in the semifinals for the first time in school history this coming weekend, and we have to watch it on YouTube. It's the only way you get to see the game. Well, the university here charges $10 to pay to get on their server, but the school they're playing against
would not sign off on it.
Streaming on YouTube. We don't pay for that one. So it was actually pretty well done. It wasn't bad at all, and we just trumped them. They were number 2, and we were number 12, and we beat them by like 20 points.
Oh wow! Did you see?
So that was fun, and then we recorded the Boise State BSU Broncos, go orange and blue, because the games overlap by an hour. So when we saw the other one, it ended. Yay, Rob! Boom. Get rid of that, put up the Boise State game, and then every time there's a commercial, fast forward. Halftime, okay, we're finally live TV.
Yeah. Did you see the
did I watch football? Oh, my Lord, did I watch football?
There's a huge controversy on the Final Four anyway. The 4 that are going to the playoffs for the BCS, and it's like... Yeah, we were at a friend's. We met some friends out at a restaurant called Sidelines. It's kind of a sports bar type thing. And anyway, we were there, and 40 TVs. There's one at every table. The whole thing. And so we watched the Georgia Alabama game. Of course, Georgia gave it away. In my opinion, by the way they played that fourth quarter. Even though Kirby Smart has done a great job with Georgia, but. Florida State has gotten snubbed by not making it to the Final Four, which Florida State being completely, they've not lost a game all year. Basically, I guess because they're ACC. It's a given that
aren't they the Seminoles?
Yeah,
is that
Florida State? Yeah. Normally the SEC champions make it to the playoffs, and that makes sense because that's arguably the most competitive conference that there is. That in the Big Ten, I suppose. But anyway, they snubbed Florida State, and they put in Texas. Texas has a loss, and it blew my mind. Why in the world would Texas be in there? So anyway, there's all kinds of things. It's like some people are saying
people are not happy. Oh, I just heard this morning that Nick Saban's somebody leaked his actual phone number online.
Oh, really?
And people were calling him saying, you shouldn't be in the playoffs. He got like hundreds of calls. So he had to shut it off.
Poor guy. He only gets like $16 million a year. I don't know if he can afford another phone or another number.
I know. Yeah. And he's such a such a wonderful human being. What an ass.
Yes. He's a little on the arrogant side. We were talking off the air.
A little? Boy, are you generous today.
See, I'm turning over a new leaf, even though it's a crumbly, dried out leaf. But yeah, he's again. We were talking off the air that seems like America, at least, you either have one end or the other of the spectrum. You either have these arrogant people that you couldn't convince them that they have any faults at all, that they're just so fantastic, and you want to watch them work out, and you want to watch them, do all this stuff. And then you've got the other end, which is nothing but a bunch of whiny, low testosterone guys that is like, I stubbed my toe this morning and I don't feel good. It's like, I'm just, there's no middle ground anymore. There's no normal people. And definitely Nick Saban falls on that arrogant side.
They're not butch enough, That's what I'm saying. Hey, come here, Allie. Come on, you can be good.
Yeah. What about the voice you did? Hey, Grandma wants a hug. Come over here.
You gotta be tough like your old grandma. Come on, kids. Grandma wants to buy you some ice cream. It'll be okay.
Rub some dirt on it. You gotta be okay. Speaking of football, though, last month I visited my brother in Kansas City, and he lives in the northern suburbs up there. And as you would imagine, the city loves their Kansas City Chiefs. They're a Super Bowl champions.
Who lost to my Packers? Oh, golly shucks.
Hey, let's not talk about the negative. Anyway, but they love Patrick Mahomes. And to be honest, I was out there 3 days, and I see Patrick Mahomes now and then. I see him on the State Farm commercials, and he seems like a very likable guy. But I mean, locally, he's on everything. He's like advertising for everything. The snow scrapers. I mean, he does everything. And so
hurdles are us. Here, buy yours now.
But he's a super hardworking, talented guy, and
he works
probably
his tail off.
Yeah, probably one of the most likable quarterbacks I probably have ever seen. Seems humble, does not seem to be. He never always gives his front line credit. Always gives everybody else credit on the team. I mean, he's like one of the most perfect football players that we've seen play. But did you see the other thing that happened in Kansas City a couple of weeks ago? I think it's been 2 weeks now. There was a kid in the crowd that couldn't be more than 8, 9, 10 years old that was dressed up in a Chiefs jersey. I think it was Travis Kelce jersey, and he had a headdress on. His face was painted two-tone red and black.
Wow, some of their colors.
Yeah, I mean they make up of 4 colors. It's white, yellow, black, and red. And normally you just see the red and white, but it's those are their team colors. But supposedly, I don't know, it was NBC. They were panning around. They saw the kid, and there was one spot where he was turned to the side where all you saw was the black side of his face. And so this website, Deadspin, I hate even using their name, but they took a
they're going to be dead soon because they won't be able to. They probably won't be in business much longer.
No, I don't. I think they're going to be under the business that they used to have. But anyway, they took a screenshot of just the black, and they said, "Oh, the kid's in blackface. I can't believe his parents did." It's like, no.
No. Wait. It wasn't just the blackface. They were saying, and he also defamed Indians because he had a big chief Indian headdress on.
Cultural appropriation. Yes.
Yes. Here's the thing. His family actually is a member of, and you have to be more than 50% or whatever to be members of tribes.
Yeah.
And they are a member of an Indian tribe.
That's right. His dad's full-blooded, I think. His grandfather's name is Raul Armenta. He sits on the board of the Kumsa tribe in Santa Ynez, California. So anyway, they've got some. They got some splaining to do, Lucy.
Well, you make assumptions and innuendos, and you know what assuming does, except in this case, it only made one person.
Yeah.
And not both. Exactly. He only had the first part of assume.
And broke, not just made an ass of. They're broke now. They're going to be as soon as his lawsuit
going to
through.
be before too long. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It reminded me that Elon Musk had famously said on Joe Rogan, it might have been last year, he said that wokeness gives people a shield to be mean and cruel, armored in false virtue. And it's like, man, it's a great sentence. I think.
Yep. Well, and he kind of lives by that, by what he did with his advertisers that, well, we're going to boycott. We are taking our money and going home. Well, Disney doesn't have much to take, so it's a small suitcase. But Yeah, it's he told them to all take a flying leap at a rolling donut, and this New York Times reporter, since you were talking about him, was up there just going. The guy was he was babbling like Porky Pig. Really? Do you? He
He's talking to
couldn't
one of the
understand
richest
it.
people in the world, and he's like going, I don't care whether they advertise with me or not. It's like, and he was obviously not prepared for that answer.
Yeah, well, Uber Libby, and he's like, what?
Yeah,
Elon Musk has become more conservative as more of this garbage stuff that they're seeing, and that's happening to a lot of Democrats where they're
sure
going,
is.
that's not what you should be doing, and they're going, I don't want to be associated with
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and they're stepping away from it.
And speaking of that, one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter group up in Rhode Island recently was interviewed, and he had this to say, which put people's panties in a wad.
Mark Fisher, co-founder of the Black Lives Matter chapter in Rhode Island, has openly endorsed President Trump's return to the Oval Office.
BLM leader, and you're now endorsing Donald Trump, saying he's the best candidate we have. Why do you think he is the best candidate that we have?
Because everybody else sucks.
So is he just the best of a bad group? I mean, is he not that great either, but he's just like better than the rest?
Well, I like Trump, personally. And I think right now who we have sitting in the Oval Office is just a deep disappointment. I deeply have disdain for him. And I really dislike the vice president as well.
What is it that why do you not like them versus like Donald Trump? I would imagine you're alone in this. Do you feel alone in this viewpoint in the world that you're in, being in the BLM movement?
No, I feel like the tide is starting to turn. I feel like a lot of Black people are starting to pivot off of that Democratic plantation for so long. We've been slaves to that party. Actually, we've been mental slaves, afraid to get off of that plantation because, we've been used and abused for so long. That party, they don't value our vote. Their policies are basically racist policies. I believe it's a racist party that strikes at the heart of the Black family and the nuclear family in general. And I believe Donald Trump he's the opposite. He's going to tell you how it is. He's going to give it to you straight. He's not going to, be a hypocrite and stab you in the back like the Democratic Party loves to do.
Fisher claims that he is not alone in his support within the BLM movement. Fisher expressed his disdain for President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, referring to them as a deep disappointment. He goes on to argue that President Trump's approach is the opposite of the Democrats' policies, which Fisher claims hurt the Black community and the nuclear family. Following his controversial statements, Fisher resigned from his leadership position at BLM Rhode Island and founded a nonprofit organization.
I think his arm probably got twisted to resign, but I don't think the national BLM movement wanted him to say any of those things. So,
well, there's more than just the gentleman in Rhode Island, and he was speaking the truth. This is what's going on. Yeah. I don't know if you heard about the stuff in Chicago. Do you have any?
I do not. For that, I don't have that with me today. I only saw that this morning, but we'll have that next week. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was you're talking different demographics and they're going. We're ready to talk to Trump. So we'll leave that at that. But it's not just happening in one isolated. It's happening everywhere. Democrats are leaving the Democratic Party because they don't feel comfortable being with a bunch of crooks. I guess I don't know what else to.
But that's what he said. The tide seems to be turning for people of color specifically within the Democratic Party. But obviously you have to think for yourself and you have to kind of come to your own conclusions. Angela Stanton King, who is actually the goddaughter of Alveda King, the niece of Martin Luther King, spoke at length about this specifically, about Donald Trump specifically, and this is what she had to say.
When it comes to President Donald Trump, a lot of people accuse this man of being a racist. I too was one of the ones that said, no, I don't want to go talk to that man. He hates Black people. Well, that's what they said. But I had a story. I wasn't going to be worried about emotions. I was going to go in with my story and see if I could make a difference. Many of you may or may not know that I served time in a Georgia state prison. And while I was serving time in that prison, I was pregnant. I was transported to a hospital here in Georgia by a police officer, and I was chained to a bed, and I was forced to give birth to my baby with a sheriff watching for a nonviolent crime. I found myself sitting in front of President Trump in the Oval Office, and I shared my story. Just so happened that he heard my story. Not only did he pass the First Step Act, overturning the 94 crime bill that massively incarcerated Black America, freeing nearly 20,000 people to this day. He also made it illegal for them to chain women to the bed during their childbirth. This white man that they told me was a racist.
There you go. There you go. And, she's related to Martin Luther King. And, it's like you just have these people who can think for themselves. And she actually thought he was a racist too. She said that. And
well, that's what the news media keeps preaching. So
exactly right. But if you stop and don't believe Richard and I either. I mean, do your research. We are obviously not the end all be all, and we can make mistakes. But I mean, think for yourself. Do research.
Oh, wait.
I didn't say we thought for ourselves, but I'm just saying that other people should.
Yes, find out for yourself. I mean, I've heard stories. We've talked about it before of the gentleman that wanted a loan, and somebody said, well, you can go see Mr. Trump, and if you write stuff up and did it all and had a business plan, and Donald Trump loaned him the money, and he said, when you get certain point, whatever, then I expect to see a check, yada, yada, yada. And they had an agreement. He came back with the check, and he goes, how things going? The guy goes, oh, I'm making it. He goes, that's how come I happen to have a check for you today. And he goes, good for you. Tore the check up.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I mean, he likes to help people. I think that's one of the things.
Yeah, and this was a black gentleman. I didn't mention that to start with, but it's it wasn't some white guy. This was a black gentleman he was doing this for. Stuff that he's not going to the news media with. No. Nobody knows about it. It's somebody who witnessed this that was a friend of the gentleman who got the loan. So
and Trump is obviously an egomaniac. He's a megalomaniac. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that they can't be nice people. It doesn't mean they don't have a heart for the people who are down on their luck. Obviously he does. And he obviously didn't get distracted by people wagging money at him while he was in office, because I think that's what happens with a lot of people. That's why they end up doing things they shouldn't be doing, or they lose sight of what they got elected for. So anyway, we're up against a break. When we come back, of course, that's easy for me to say again. We're going to talk about the election of 2020 and maybe 2022 a little bit, and how maybe 2024 will shape up. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
Here's another fake AI celebrity endorsement.
This is Greta Thunberg, and this is the Stay Off My Lawn podcast.
Hey, wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest.
Uh-oh.
Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 2. If you notice, we have Christmas music in between our breaks. So I went and got that this week. I gotta get in the spirit. Gosh. A Virginia election official charged with corruption changed the results of the 2020 presidential election, resulting in false results being reported, according to a newly disclosed court finding. Former Prince William County Registrar Michelle White altered the election results within the state reporting system, which is called VERIS, VERIS. According to one of the documents. Her alterations resulted in false reporting of the election results of Prince William County, is what it actually stated. Now, VERIS stands for the Virginia Election and Registration Information System, was implemented in 2007. You had another one too. You had one up in, was it New Hampshire?
There was one in, that lady was in all kinds of, how did she know somebody had to help look, the vote's not right. So if you see that it's going this way, here's what you need to do. Yeah. Somebody had to facilitate that. You think she did that all on her own? I don't think so.
Either way, even if the machine's screwed up, you shouldn't be able to go in there and change anything.
You shouldn't be able to get at it. Yeah, that's the whole point of a secured election.
Oh, it's the most secure in history.
It has not been. Yeah. Up in please, people, this is off the top of my head. I'm not reading it, but it's up in New Hampshire. A judge decertified a recent election because there was some hinky stuff going on, and they were finding a lot of mail-in ballots seemed to be a problem. Yeah. And they were something about a lot of things that, what was it? The signatures were the same. And there was one house that had 42 ballots. 42 electors were registered at that house.
There's a lot of people living there.
And it was an empty house. 42. And then what was the other thing? It was deaths. There was, I forget what the percentage was of people that were over 80 that were all registered and voted, of which 70% of them had passed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dead people like to vote Democrat for some reason.
I thought only dead people voted in Chicago. I didn't know that some of them had moved to New Hampshire.
I mean, I guess if you're going to live in the Great White North and where things are awful and frozen in ice most of the time, then why not?
And then you had another incident in, your state, in Georgia.
Yeah, we had, they had decided that the Dominion voting machines were just not worth a flip, and they just decided they're not going to use them anymore. Now, I don't know whether we're going to go to paper ballots, which I'm okay with. I was talking to, I think I mentioned it last week. I was talking to somebody at a get-together, and it's like, at least with paper ballots, they were done. They were done very quickly. Now we got to wait. Now that things are better, we got to wait like 2 weeks sometimes. Yeah, they just need to go back.
And it's electronic. Why are you waiting 2 weeks on electronic? It should be
instant.
Send it done.
Yeah, as soon as they close the polls, maybe an hour later, get everything tabulated.
None of this 3 o'clock in the morning with a broken water pipe with a supposedly phantom broken water main. Yeah,
it just didn't have any water in it and didn't have any pipe.
But it was easier to get the suitcases out from underneath the tables that had all the extra ballots.
Yeah, when you send everybody home because of the flood, but yeah. And Maricopa,
what's the other one?
Maricopa County in Arizona. They admitted that they had improperly certified the voting machines that failed miserably on Election Day, which Carrie Lake was very vocal about all that, and she was absolutely right. It's been obvious to most thinking people that a lot of election results have been off, big swings like we were talking about, the candidates overnight, and then of course takes so long to count everything. It just reeks of corruption, which is led to a lot of what happened on January 6th. There's so many layers to January 6th. A lot of people just want to be mad about it, and that's just kind of how it goes. But Tucker Carlson was interviewed recently on Russell Brand's podcast is what it was. And he was asked specifically about January 6th, because it wasn't long after January 6th, I think, when he got fired, and he was kind of doing a lot of investigative reporting on it. And so anyway, he had a lot to say, and this is part of that interview.
My first 5 shows on January 6th were like, well, yeah, it's bad, but I don't think you're telling the truth about what actually happened. Shut up! Racist! What? So that's always the key for me. If it's like an infection, it's infected when it hurts. You press it, you recoil. They immediately recoiled when you asked any questions about January 6th. And that was a tip off to me. I mean, I had no thought in my head as I watched this happen on television and in the subsequent weeks that U.S. law enforcement or military agencies had anything to do with it. That never crossed my mind. I never thought it was a false flag or anything like that. I'm not a conspiracist by temperament. I never thought that. And then I interviewed the chief of the Capitol Police, Stephen Sund, in an interview that was never aired on Fox, by the way. I was fired before it could air. I'm going to interview him again. But Stephen Sund was the totally non-political, not some right-wing activist. He was the chief of the Capitol Police on January 6th. And he said, oh, yeah. That crowd was filled with federal agents. What? Yes. Well, he would know, of course, because he was in charge of security at the site. So the more time has passed, now it's been 2.5 years, it becomes really obvious that core claims they made about January 6th were lies. And my view about events and about people is if you catch someone telling a lie about one thing, the first question you have is, what else are you lying about? If you say to your wife, where were you? I was at the grocery store. If you find out she was not at the grocery store, then it raises, okay, probably not just lying about being at the grocery store, were you? Like, what is this exactly? Why were you lying about that? And that's kind of the way I feel about January. Like, what is this? What this is? They're clearly lying. That's provable. Why? And I'm the last person. I'm often a conspiracy nut. I'm the opposite. I grew up in a very stable country, the United States, in the 70s and 80s, where people didn't indulge in conspiracies because there weren't any obvious ones afoot, right? I mean, we took things at face value. We trusted our government by and large. But the amount of lying around January 6th, and it was obvious in the tapes that I showed, is really distressing. And anyone who's covering for those lies should be ashamed of himself. And that would include almost the entire American media, including Fox News. People at Fox News. Fox News, to its great credit, let me air that. And I'm grateful that they did. But there are people there who were mad at me for airing that. Really, why? If you think I'm cherry picking it and taking it out of context, show me where. And by the way, I didn't make the claim that it was entirely peaceful. It wasn't. Police officers were injured. More police officers were injured at the riots in front of the White House the year before, but whatever.
But whatever.
It's like, yeah, that took place. Yeah, there's just too much hanky stuff going on, and when they're releasing that much, 40,000 hours worth of it, he just released all of it.
Yep,
everything that was there, and it goes so much against the narrative. And why aren't we hearing anything from Pelosi all of a sudden? Did she crawl in a hole? Did she die? I don't know.
She might have. If she's got a bottle of vodka with her, she might be in there a while.
Crawled into it maybe, but all of a sudden she's just, she did something the other day, but it was so nondescript that it was okay. Everybody's just ignoring her.
Well, you remember they had all those hearings on the January 6th thing too, that they were cherry picking on that.
And they altered stuff, and they got caught with that and go, well, we wanted to try and make it so it was more succinct. Yeah,
but again, nothing happened. Nothing happened. I mean, all those people, including the Wyoming senator that got basically voted out and fired. I mean,
well, she was a rhino, and there was another Republican on there that he either resigned or was voted out also.
I'm trying to remember what his name was.
I don't remember who
but
it
anyway,
was.
But I mean, anybody who's responsible for messing with the footage just to promote an agenda, I mean, and call us out if you think we're ever doing that. I mean, soml@duck.com. Call us 770-727-6443 if you think that we are just trying to make you think a certain way. No, we just want to look at the facts, and it's like, with 40,000 hours of footage, it's going to take a while to go through everything. But some of the stuff that I saw that we never saw before were the protesters that were coming in and fist bumping the Capitol Police as they were walking by, and the Capitol Police leading them around and showing them things where they were at, and the artwork on the wall. It's like, this is not what we were shown before. I mean, there's no way that they would coexist. There's no way that
I don't know of anything that was destroyed other than somebody supposedly took Pelosi's laptop and put their feet up on her desk because a reporter wanted to take a picture of them doing it. And by the way, I just saw a video yesterday of one of the plants, if you will, that was in the crowd, was telling his girlfriend who filmed it, and I don't know whether she put it out there or what, but it's him saying, haha, this is great. You don't know how many people I talked into going and doing this. This was so good. Boy, I got so many people to really.
Yeah,
no, there was nothing nefarious going on. My eyeball.
like Tucker said, I mean, we grew up in an era where we trusted what the government told us, and I think that it kind of goes against our grain to go, nah, you're probably lying to me whenever you speak. I mean, pretty much, if your lips are moving, you're probably lying. I hate to think that way, but in a related note, this has got to do with COVID. Everything's been the last few years. It's really, really strange. Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massey made a tweet back during the pandemic about an Israeli study that linked natural immunity after infection of COVID is the same as the immunity from the jab. Now we know that it's even better than immunity from the jab. But that tweet was censored and taken down. Now, Olivia Troy, which I had never heard of her prior, she's a lifelong Republican. She served on the White House Coronavirus Task Force and was Mike Pence's lead staffer on the task force, because remember, he was in charge of all that stuff, and resigned from the White House in August of 2020. As well as a lifelong Democrat, which is journalist Michael Schellenberger. We've heard about him and Matt Taibbi quite a bit. They were the guys who were in charge of the Twitter files. They've since, him and Taibbi both have since had their eyes opened, being one of the main investigators of all that stuff. And they both testified before Congress multiple times. But recently, Mr. Schellenberger was talking about more recent findings. And we should be even more concerned about what he's found here recently. And this is a little bit lengthy, but there's a lot of information in here. So,
Ms. Troy, you stated in your opening statement that this committee was indulging in fantasy detached from reality, that members of this committee and their witnesses make grand and vague accusations about government censorship.
Oh, by the way, she's a lifelong Republican, but she has come out and said that this is all just a bunch of conspiracy theory. And I don't know whether it's the Mike Pence in her, whatever, but I mean, things are, she's on the opposite side of common sense now too. So.
And that we are spreading conspiracy theories about government censorship. Would one of those conspiracy theories be that government-funded agencies were flagging and trying to censor official congressional accounts on social media? Are you denying that that occurred?
I would have no knowledge of that. I'm not aware of that happening.
Well, we're going to make you aware of that right now. Mr. Schellenberger, can you speak to this tweet? I saw that you flagged this in one of your recent articles on Substack. Can you tell us why this tweet brought attention in your article?
Yeah, because that was one of the tweets that that the Virality Project at Stanford Institute Internet Observatory had flagged to Twitter as misinformation, and that I believe it was labeled or censored in some other way.
So it was the Stanford Virality Project, that is funded by the government, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And so their purpose, ostensibly, is to stop misinformation, malinformation, and to flag things they say that might be against the terms of service of the social media companies. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Ms. Troy, is there any reason you think that this should have been flagged?
Depends on whether you're spreading inaccurate information.
Well, it references a study from Israel, a published study from Israel, and the tweet just restates the title of the study. Does it trouble you that
companies to review their policies? It's an internal choice.
Yeah, are you going to sit here and maintain that it's a conspiracy theory that this occurred? We have the documents. Mr. Schellenberger has the documents that showed that this occurred.
Well, then it was flagged for a reason.
What's the reason? Is there ever a good reason to censor a member of Congress? This is my official account. This is not a personal account. This is not a campaign account. This is my communication with my constituents. And by the way, I bring this up not to claim that members of Congress have more right to free speech than the general public. In fact, I don't even think the press or the media has more rights to the First Amendment than the general public. The general public has the same rights that we have. And I bring this up to show, number one, that your testimony is false. But number two, if they can do this to a member of Congress's official account, they can do it to anybody. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to move on to the origins of these programs. Mr. Schellenberger, can you tell us about the Cyber Threat Intelligence League? Was this just a group of vigilantes, concerned citizens, or was it in any way connected to the government? And what did they endeavor to do?
Yeah, this was so. First of all, it's a pretty ludicrous founding, which was that this is a group of it was Israeli, so-called former Israeli intelligence, former British intelligence, also working at Microsoft, and others who basically said we're going to volunteer our services. These are some of the world's greatest so-called cybersecurity professionals, volunteering their services to multi-billion-dollar hospital and healthcare organizations whose own IT organizations spend millions of dollars a year on cybersecurity, supposedly volunteering this. This was the premise of the whole thing. It then created this third part that I mentioned. They had physical security, cybersecurity, they added cognitive security, and the people that did that were 2 UK and US military contractors. This was one of the most sophisticated disinformation operations that I've ever seen. I've been involved in progressive causes for over 30 years. I've never seen anything so organized, anything that was so focused on a particular goal and that had so many people that came from military and intelligence organizations. It gave me the creeps just reading about it.
And in the documents, is it true that they used their agency SEALs, FBI, CISA, when they were communicating with each other?
That's right, and the whistleblower provided screenshots of Slack conversations that included officials from DHS, Facebook, and the CTIL League.
So it would be hard for somebody to claim that these folks weren't agents of the government or acting in coordination with the government or using things that they learned in their government. Were some of them still employed by the U.S. government when they were undertaking this?
Yes, Pablo Brewer was working for the U.S. Navy at the time, and many of the others were claiming to be volunteering their time even while working their day jobs for the government.
Well, I mean, there's he has a lot to say. We're finding out more and more. Well, I just have to wait and see whether anybody gets prosecuted over all this.
This was part of the clips on this that I saw was when she first started, she was saying about conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes, I've never said anything about conspiracy. You just said that like an hour ago.
Or an hour ago, yeah.
Yeah. 1 hour later. Yeah, she's about as uncredible as could be. And Schellenberger and some other guy are kind of the ones that are talking about all the nefarious stuff that was going on. And they just sat and turned and looked at her like, are you serious?
And the thing that gets me is that Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, like he said, he's been part of progressive movements for 30 years. I mean, they are not these lifelong Republican people. These are people that both of them, I think, voted for Joe Biden in 2020. But since they were tasked with the Twitter files thing, and since they started digging up all this stuff, I mean, you would mistake them for conservatives and lifelong.
Yeah, you would. The way that they're talking about it, because their jobs are based on freedom of speech. And they're seeing this is being taken away right before our very eyes. It's like, no, this isn't right. And I give them lots of kudos for doing the right thing.
I did too. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk about that red state, blue state debate. And I can't talk today. Maybe it's every week. I don't know. But it was a great bit of television last week. The great red state, blue state debate. And the only part about was the guy from Fox that ran the whole thing. But anyway, we'll talk about that. And so hang in there. We'll be right back.
The old guys return with more Stay Off My Lawn in just a minute. God help us.
They are our love bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 3, and we're going to talk a little bit about that red state, blue state debate. And that all rhymes so well, nicely. So.
Yes, red states, blue states. Well, since we're talking about that, Idaho has had, as many people know, it's no longer a cheap state to move to because all of those that moved in ruined our economy, and now housing is stupid because you can't have 100 some odd thousand people move in 10 years and go, where are we going to put them all?
Yeah.
You can't build houses fast enough. But anyway, of the 119,000 voters who relocated to Idaho in recent years, 65% signed up as Republican.
No.
So you think it's lefties moving in. It's not. That's significantly higher than what our normal state rate was, which is 58% GOP. So we've got those influx that are coming in. And this is from a liberal newspaper, by the way, the Willamette Week, or some people say the Willamette, but it's the Willamette Week, and it's very liberal. But they've also pointed out that of those 119,000, only 12% of the newcomers registered as Democrats.
Oh, wow.
Democrats are losing their shorts.
Wow.
So we took a red state and got a redder crayon.
It's like magenta now, or whatever it is. Yeah,
whatever.
But I do think a lot of the states are getting redder and redder. Look at Florida. I mean, the same kind of thing. I mean, it's gone from kind of being purple 6-7 years ago to deep red now. Was it DeSantis won re-election with 60% of the vote, 59.8% of the vote, something like that. I mean, that's unheard of. It's the biggest gap of a Republican governor ever, I think.
Well, and since we're talking about California, I saw a county by county where they colored in the counties that 10 years ago, there was a lot of blue. There's just pockets of red. Pockets of blue. Yeah. It's all red now, except for where? The big liberal cities.
Yep. LA,
with
San
these
Diego.
people that are educated and came from the indoctrination camps of the universities, and they think they know their stuff. Well, it's not working out so good.
I do remember saying this in the past. It's like some of the dumbest people that I've ever known are the highly educated people. I mean, because they are so, like you said, they've been hit so hard with the indoctrination that it's like they see it as true as 4 + 4. You know, there's just no way that can't be true. I was told this in college, and the rest of us who didn't. I don't want to include you. I think you had some college, but I mean, I was never
not enough to ruin me.
I was never pushed that way. You know what I mean? I've always been thinking for myself. I remember the first time I voted in 1984, I think it was, presidentially. I mean, I just remember thinking, well, I was in the military, so yeah, things are going well. Then I think that Reagan should have another term. That was before I really thought much about politics. I mean, but I didn't know who was a Republican, who was a Democrat. I never really paid any attention. And of course, as time went on, back by the time the late 80s rolled around, I was paying very close attention. So.
There's been a big change in things where start noticing. I know that when I first started voting and stuff, especially in Idaho, you could go both sides. You could vote this one, or this one was a Democrat, this one was a Republican. You could cross back and forth because we had Senator, all of a sudden, the river of no return, Frank Church, was a big senator and ran for president. In fact, and he was a Democrat. One of our big governors was Phil Batt, was a big Democrat. Okay, things were going pretty good, no biggie. And then it kind of started changing. Yeah. And that's when it's like, I'm not putting anybody in that has a D behind their name, because the Democratic Party, what they're pushing and doing is not going over well with the American people.
No, not at all. Everything shifted left. You know, they're either, and if you're going to be a Democrat now, you got to be pro-abortion up till birth. You've got to be pretty much pro-open borders. You've got to be pro-printing as much money as we have to print, supporting overseas wars. I mean, all these things. And of course, then the rhinos on the Republican side move left with them. So, I mean, we've got just a handful of us that are left that are true conservatives anymore.
Yeah, it's just not the right thing what they're doing. The Democrats of old, if you listen to speeches and stuff of Kennedy, that's what the Democratic Party used to be, and it wasn't all bad. And then in the late, when LBJ took over and they signed all the stuff to give things to the black community, it just killed their community.
Well, I remember
The father staying with the family started going away at that time. That's when it started happening. It was not that way.
They incentivized
used
the
to be.
family, the father being gone from the situation.
You need a raise, have another baby.
Do you remember the debate between Reagan and Mondale? And I don't remember whether that was 79 or no, because Carter ran for re-election, so it had to be 84.
Yeah,
but
it was 84.
That debate with Reagan and Mondale, that was downright friendly. I mean, even in that, well, that was 40 years ago now, but I mean, they didn't hate each other. There wasn't this animosity that you feel today. We had different people that had different views of how to fix. We all agreed on what the problem was. And, you hear people today, and I've heard it come out of my mouth, and I have to slap myself. And it's really a funny sight. I'd really need to put it on YouTube, but, but that we all want the same thing. And
you had Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
Yeah,
exactly. Tip O'Neill was a staunch Democrat, but the two of them could still talk to each other in a civil manner and come to a solution that was going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
You can't have that anymore. Nobody's budging off of nothing.
It was like a version of pro wrestling. Off camera, they all got along, and then on camera, they hated each other. But you're right. Tip O'Neill was a great example. Being Speaker of the House, he had a lot of power, and him and Reagan saw eye to eye on a lot of things. Of course, you had the Blue Dog Democrats that voted for Reagan that got him winning the re-election in such a huge fashion. But today is just not that way. The red state, blue state debate that we just saw this past week was between Gavin Newsom of California and Florida's Ron DeSantis. It was just nothing but a highlight soundbite machine.
It was poorly moderated. Sorry, but he just did a horrible job.
Sean Hannity, I mean, God bless him.
It was not good.
I think that he's another one that's got a lot of self-confidence, and he's been in media a long time. Who am I to say he's no good? But he's just not my cup of tea. I'll just leave it there. But here's Ron calling out Gavin for the Xi Jinping recent visit in San Francisco.
This is a map of San Francisco. This is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see how almost the whole thing is covered, because that is what has happened in one of the previous greatest cities this country's ever had. Human feces is now a fact of life, except when a communist dictator comes to town. Then they cleaned up the streets. They lined the streets with Chinese flags. They didn't put American flags there. They cleaned everything up. So they're willing to do it for a communist dictator, but they're not willing to do it for their own people.
Did you see the video with all the Chinese flags lining the streets?
Oh, yeah. No, I watched the procession as they were coming around, and you would have thought this was being filmed in China.
Exactly.
Nope. Not an American flag to be seen.
I think it's so hypocritical. It's just so, oh my gosh. Because they look up to Xi Jinping. I truly believe that because of his power.
Well, it's the boss.
Yeah, he's the boss. He's got the purse strings. So anyway, here's Ron calling out Gavin. Again, he got fed up with his arrogance, and of course, you saw the smirk.
Just wanted to smack that smirk right off his face. Man, that was arrogant.
And you just can't help it. I mean, he conjures up bad feelings in me. Anyway,
he only wanted to give a retort that was an absolute flat out and out lie.
Yep, and that's all he did. He told lies. He denied some of the CDC and Border Patrol numbers. Anyway, here's that clip.
I don't mind him lying to me. I don't mind Gavin lying to me, but I do mind him lying to you. He is sitting there saying that Joe Biden is willing to solve this problem. Is there anybody out there that actually believes this? Joe Biden created this problem. So if he's willing to lie to you about that, he's lying to you about all these other facts and figures, about all this other stuff. He's just throwing stuff out to see what sticks against the wall. This is a slick, slippery politician whose state is failing. People are leaving his state, and he's trying to run interference for his failure.
See,
Wait, did that clip go on a little longer about who it was that was leaving the state that might have been related
I
to?
don't know. I
Kevin?
thought I had that clip, and it may be in one of the other two. I've got two more clips, and
Okay, well, I'll wait, and then I will bring it up again.
If it's not in there, then we'll talk about it. Yeah. But there's a big difference in how Florida is governed and managed as compared to California, and this is about parents' rights.
But let me just say something about parents' rights, because he says California respects parents' rights. This is rich. He's been telling a lot of whoppers tonight. This may be the biggest. In California, if you're a parent in Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina, your minor child can go to California without your knowledge or without your consent and get hormone therapy, puberty blockers, and a sex change operation, all without you knowing or consenting. How in the heck is that honoring parents' rights when you're bringing people from out of state to go around their parents' backs and getting life-altering surgeries? That is radical. That is
Ron,
extreme.
these kids
That is an
just
assault
want
on
to live.
parents' rights.
You know what, Ron?
It's not for you to decide. It's for the parents to
It's for the-
decide.
you know what?
And the
These
parents
kids
do not
just
want their kids
survive.
going
I
to these
find this,
other
honestly,
things.
These kids have the highest suicide.
These kids just want to survive. It's like, well, I got a penis and I don't want it no more.
Well, or someone's convinced them that they shouldn't have it anymore.
Exactly.
That's more of the truth. And that's where Hannity was an absolutely horrible moderator. Newsom needed to shut up because it wasn't his time to speak. He needed to keep his trap shut.
He started that very early. Yeah. And
it was just an absolute. Some of it is just unwatchable. It's like two little kids. Did so, did not. I got it. You did not.
It did. It made my heart race a little bit just because it kept going over each other, and because Gavin was doing that, Ron DeSantis started doing it too. So I got to hold him to the fire too because he was doing the same thing. But you got to fight fire with fire when you're talking about a debate. I really believe
when you got a moderator that's not moderating,
that won't do anything,
and it's every man for himself. Well, that's what happened.
Yeah. He anyway, Gavin didn't. I think he underestimated Ron DeSantis and his intelligence. And he had that grin on his face, and you heard him snicker every once in a while when he would say something. It just annoyed me. Anyway, here's another clip about China owning land in the U.S., which the FBI has already said that China is one of our biggest foes in world politics today. Anyway, here's that clip.
Well, first, in Florida, we banned China from buying land in our state because you're right. You don't want them buying farmland or land near military bases. So we acted. We also got the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. China should not be involved in our universities at all. What you need to do is you need to have hard power in the Indo-Pacific to deter China's ambitions. You need to take the economy and we need to decouple from China. We're dependent on them for so many things. And then finally, we need to get serious about their influence in this country. They shouldn't be able to buy farmland anywhere. I can tell you this, I would not go to China and grovel in front of Xi like Gavin Newsom did. He says China's a partner on climate change. China's adding 2 new coal plants every year. China's laughing at us with what they're doing. So yes, they're the number one threat we face, and we need to take it seriously, and Joe Biden is not doing that.
I have to correct Ron DeSantis, and I normally would never even venture down this road, but China's building 2 new coal plants a week, not a year, a week. In the past year.
They are putting those puppies out. They have several in process because if you're going to go all electric, you have to have a grid in order to do that. And in this country, it's not happening.
No.
You can push the electric cars. I saw something yesterday where someone was told, stop with the electric cars. We can't, Ford is not building anymore now.
Really?
They can't afford to.
Yeah. I just figured it was because of all the fires that they've started.
That may be part of the problem, but people aren't wanting to buy them. Because they've had too many friends that went. I went in the wintertime, instead of going 280 miles or 250 miles on a charge, in the winter when it's cold, you get half that. And in Canada, it's even worse than half that because it's so much more cold.
Yeah.
Batteries, they don't handle the cold.
They do not perform well. No, you're right. It's only, I don't know. But anyway, even Laura Ingraham noticed that Gavin was focusing on minor things instead of substance. And here's Gavin whining a little bit while Ron's trying to actually talk about substantive things.
Well, look, I give Newsom credit for agreeing to the debate. It was kind of fun to watch. But he didn't do himself any favors with whiny moments like this.
Joe Biden is in the pocket of the teachers union, and so is Kamala Harris. That's why they fought
by the way,
school
it's not
openings
Kamala Harris.
when he
Shame
came
on
in
you.
there.
It's Kamala
when they had
Harris,
that in
Ron.
there.
It's Kamala
Biden came
Harris,
into office
Madam
and he
Vice
brought in the
President,
teacher
to you,
union to
Kamala
be
Harris.
able to do
Stop
all these
insulting.
different things.
Does Gavin Newsom not realize that Joe Biden can mispronounce the word in the name Bob? Okay. He's like, Kamala Harris. Oh, please.
Yeah, see, he's majoring on the minor stuff. I mean, it's like, it's Kamala Harris. It's Miss Vice President to you. It's like, oh my gosh.
And Tackle Queen. Come on, get the name and title right.
And Gavin just kind of rolled right through, just completely tuned him out, which I love that about him. And personally, and I'm not one to, and I have not said this before, but I've already made my decision about the primary, and yeah, I think Trump's got a lot of good things, but I've been a Gavin Newsom. I've been a Ron DeSantis fan for a long time, and I think that he's going to get my vote in the primary. But things can change. But yeah, it's kind of the direction I'm going. Have you made a decision on the primary? It's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, I used to like DeSantis, and then he's stepped on it more than once, and it's like, okay, no, you needed to just wait till 2024. He didn't have the patience to do that. Yeah. I'm not. Somebody's chirping in his ear, and I'm not a fan anymore.
Yeah. It's a tough situation to be in, but I think out of all of them, I think that I'm trying to think big picture wise, he just seems like he would have a better handle on dealing with people from overseas and the international situations, as well as dealing with domestic things. And it just seems like he's more equipped than the others. But it's kind of hard to know. Tell you what, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Bidenomics and how well that's going. It's a dumpster fire, but it's going pretty well other than that. So hang in there. We will be right back.
The Stay Off My Lawn radio show and podcast will be right back.
Join the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society to help light the night and bring hope. Light the Night is a nationwide event that brings communities together to honor, remember, and celebrate those who have been afflicted with blood cancers. Lift your lanterns high and help shine a path to a cancer-free future. Be a part of Light the Night and find your local event at lightthenight.org. Let's light up the night and make a difference together. That's lightthenight.org to get involved.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 4. We're almost done. You got something to add.
Oh, yeah. Before we get into Bidenomics, we were talking about that somebody that was close to Gavin Newsom left the state and moved to Florida. It was his father-in-law.
I thought I had that clip, and I do not. But yeah, Ron DeSantis said he was talking to somebody that moved from California because it's better governed in Florida, and because just things are the taxes are lower. And guess who that was? That was his father-in-law.
Yeah, all he could do was do that little smirk, and he didn't even have any rebuttal for this. Nothing. He kind of stammered a little and just let it go at that.
That happened quite a bit. It was actually kind of fun to watch. Like I said, I think he's been able to get by so often with his looks, and I'll grant you, he's a
the liberal
guy.
News media in California is what he can get by with, because all he gets is softball questions, and they just go, okay, whatever he says, okay, and they put it out there as fact and truth, and he doesn't tell the truth often enough to know that. I don't know how he gets around with a nose that long. Really? I mean, come on.
Well, Bidenomics, we have the same kind of situation. The Guardian magazine says Bidenomics is already working and delivering for the American people. Fortune magazine, which surprised me a little bit, said Bidenomics is working almost too well and is souring the Democratic bourgeois base. And of course, if you're not familiar with that term, the bourgeoisie is a middle class from the old French, the Middle Ages, 1300 to 1500. Anyway, it was in between the peasantry and the aristocracy in old France from 1,000 years ago. So it's very or 700 years ago. So it's very interesting that
that was last week.
Yeah, it's a couple months ago. Anyway, these politicians like to say that inflation is decreasing in gas prices are lower. And of course, they don't have a reference point when all this started.
Well, I just saw KJP the other day was pushing the lie again because we inherited a mess. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. According to one poll, 98% of Americans say they are worse off now than they were in 2019. And of course, I got a clip from Uncle Joe. This is fantastic. Here he is.
In fact, as a share of earnings this Thanksgiving, dinner was the 4th cheapest ever on record. I want you all to know that.
No, it wasn't.
I look at all the press. Look at that. Press is particularly excited about that, I can see. But look, all kidding aside, that's not all. On Thanksgiving 2 years ago, 100 container ships were waiting in the dock in the ports. They were lined up, 100 long out into the ocean. This year, there were less than 10, meaning that today, as folks start their holiday shopping, shelves are stocked, meaning that if major appliances like a stove or a fridge broke down over Thanksgiving, you can replace it faster and 9% cheaper than did 2 years ago.
Well, I feel better about the way I speak now because I even when I stumble, I sound better than that. But
he made me snort. That's not good.
First of all those ships were backed up in the ocean 2 years ago, and mostly cargo ships from China, first of all. It was precisely because of the overreaction by Newsom and by Biden and with the COVID lockdown.
Government regulations is why they were backed up by the lefties.
Exactly.
That's what was causing the problem. A lot of them they were so backed up on the West Coast that they went down through the Panama Canal and back up and were being unloaded
in Savannah,
in Florida.
Yeah.
And along in the Gulf Coast.
Yep.
Because that's how bad it was. It wasn't somebody else's fault. It was pretty much yours.
Yeah. And there's no way it was the 4th cheapest Thanksgiving on record. That's got to be the dumbest thing I think I've heard him say. And you've got some numbers from Bloomberg.
I have a bunch. Hang in there, folks. Let's go through some of this, shall we? Let's do the fact checks. These are numbers, not ours. This comes from Bloomberg. So this is not even a right-leaning conservative group of folks. This is Bloomberg. They're pretty lefty. Home values are up 42%. So you got home values up. People can't afford to buy them. That's 42%. Coffee's up 23%. Not my coffee. I don't go to coffee shops anyway. Mortgage rates have gone from 3% to 7%. And I've recently I've been kind of watching some stuff, 8% for a loan. Now, I remember when Carter was president, some of the mortgage rates you were lucky to get a 12% mortgage. Some had gotten up to 18% back in the
I remember hearing
late
about
70s.
16%. I remember that.
Yeah, they were horrible. Yeah. Rents up 24%. And in our area, just as bad. You got a lot of people moving in. It's supply and demand. There's no place to put them all. Rent's expensive. Electricity up 25%. Natural gas is up 29%. You're not allowed to get it out of the ground anymore. Guess what happens? Supply and demand, the price goes up because they can't get it out of the ground fast enough. Used cars are up 35%. Yeah. I'm glad I don't have to buy a car right now.
Me too.
It's not good. And speaking of cars, since we're talking about that, I was looking at this also. Insurance is up 33%. Unless you get one of those little things, drive safe, whatever. I'm on that.
I'm not doing that.
The wife won't do it either, but my insurance is really low. Yeah, I drive like an old man.
I don't realize how much I drive like an old man, but I mean, my wife's always like, you drive like a little old lady. It's like, well, I'm safe. I don't have
Well, I used to drive a 22-foot delivery truck with a lot of stuff in it. You don't go around corners quick. You don't stop quick, or everything's around your neck. So you just learn to drive a little differently. Yeah. The average restaurant meal is up 24%. I feel so bad for restaurants. People go, God, they just keep raising their prices. They're gouging. No, they're not. Their stuff they buy, it's got to be, they can't just keep eating it. Yeah, that's not how it works, people.
Oh, that was good. I like that. Let me jot that down. That was really good.
They have to pay so much for it. And when what they're paying for goes up, It's got to go somewhere.
Speaking of gouging, do you remember when Biden was saying that the oil companies were gouging because the gas prices were so high? Oh, take the hit. I mean, what's wrong with you? It's
you guys can lower your prices. The cost of getting it out of the ground, and when there's only so many places you're getting it from, it's supply and demand. You caused this, you bonehead.
Exactly.
In 2020, the average household spending for groceries, this is what's killing everybody, was $238 a week. Well, now it's over $315, and I just saw something the other day that said it's between $350 and $375.
Oh, is it really now? Jeez.
It's people go, well, why is it so expensive? How do you think stuff gets to the grocery store? Oh, that's right, it's in a truck. What makes it expensive to get there in a truck? Oh, that's right. Fuel that's up like 50%.
Yeah.
It's like, give me a break.
And these are all numbers from 2020. Biden was just getting into office. So
238 was, it was great. Our groceries it's pretty close to an extra 150 to $200 $200 a month more.
Yeah.
My budget's like $450 a month different.
I was talking to my son last night, and he was talking about when him and his wife first got married 4 years ago, that they would go to Aldi's and get their groceries, and it'd be $170, and that would last them for 2 weeks. Now they're spending, of course, now they got the twin, the babies and everything, but it's over $300 now he has to spend a week on getting the same kind of crap. I mean, other than the formula and the diapers, it's the same stuff.
Yeah, we used to get a shopping cart heaping full. We'd go into town to a Walmart, like an Aldi type thing, and we'd go in and fill it to the top with all kinds of groceries. And wow, it was almost $200. Geez, that's too much. Yeah. Now you got a half a carton, it's $200. What's that?
I was going to say, I always make the joke of going into Costco. It's got to be federal law that you have to spend $300 every time you walk in the door, because it's like you can't get out of there with less than that.
And we got to go and get a bunch of staples. It's going to be a $300+.
Yeah.
I cringe, but when you're out of certain things, and that's the best way to get them.
We got to go tomorrow.
So anyhow, the groceries are up pretty close to 25%.
Yeah.
And if you travel by air, good luck with that. You go visit family over Thanksgiving. Well, just this year, the airfare is up 25%. Why would that be? Oh, yeah, that's right. They use fuel in the plane to go. That's way more expensive.
They're paying the pilots too much. That's all it is.
Yeah. I mean, well, they're having problems filling planes now because people so now they're putting out special deals just to get butts in the seat to pay something. I've never seen so many good deals coming through, but they're not for cities I'm going to.
When I went to fly out to Kansas City to see my brother, I mean, they told me both directions that it was not a full flight, that there's no reason to sit three wide in any of the seats. You can just, spread out a little bit, move to the back. You might have a whole row to yourself. I mean, I'd never heard that before. Everybody, almost always it was full.
I mean, we were looking at going back to Virginia. Well, gee, my knees, round trip for the wife and I, it's almost $2,000 to go from where we're at in Boise to Virginia Beach, which is Norfolk has the airport there. It's like, I don't know. It's almost cheaper to drive, but then the gas prices are high. So I don't know.
Can you fly into Washington, D.C. or Richmond or something?
Washington, D.C. is from them about 3 hours away.
Yeah. And it's quite a ways.
You got to fly into Norfolk. That's what it is. And these smaller airports and leaving out of Boise don't help any either, but it's getting to be a big, busier place too.
Yeah.
So
incredible. After all that, I think we need a palate cleanser.
Mike, how do you get rid of this nasty taste?
I don't know. I got a tongue scraper. I'm going to go try that. But Paul Harvey has a story of one of the Christmas carols that we all know and love. And so enjoy this palate cleanser from our friend, Paul Harvey.
Now, the rest of the story. Father Joseph Moore had an emergency on his hands. He's a young priest in a newly created parish. He's not yet accustomed to dealing with last-minute crises. Everything had been routine, had been minor until now, but now it's December 24, it's Christmas Eve. The little Bavarian village of Oberndorf was already cloaked in gray nightfall, gently swirling snow. Father Joseph's parishioners were so looking forward to the midnight church service. For them, Christmas would simply not be Christmas unless it was heralded by the choir singing joyful carols, accompanied by the chapel organ. That was the problem, the organ. Or rather, the absence of it. For you see, the local schoolmaster and church organist, a young fellow named Franz Gruber, had come early that evening to rehearse for the midnight service, and he'd noticed that there was curiously little resistance as his feet pumped the organ pedals, and when his fingers touched the keys, nothing. Not a sound. Further investigation revealed that hungry church mice had nibbled the bellows of the organ. No air pressure to feed the pipes, and on such short notice, repair was out of the question. So, organist Franz reluctantly made the announcement to Father Joseph. In a matter of hours, the church would be filled with an eager congregation, and then it would be Father Joseph's turn to break the news. Half-heartedly, organist Franz mentioned that he also played the guitar. Father Joseph smiled. The magnificent service he had in mind would be incongruously diminished by such feeble accompaniment. Unless, of course, Franz would like to write new music for the service, some music specifically suited to the guitar. Now Franz was smiling, but Father Joseph was serious. With so little time to work, neither could expect a profound and polished finished product, but for the sake of a Merry Christmas, they would have to do their best. With the midnight service fast approaching, Franz hurried home to get his guitar and some blank staff paper. And when he returned to the church, Father Joseph handed him a poem of 3 verses. Father Joseph had written a poem himself. He had actually composed it the day before without knowing how quickly it would become of use. Franz took the poem, began scoring for 2 solo voices, chorus and guitar accompaniment. The lines of music flowed onto the paper like sacramental wine. Perhaps the melody was a bit too naive, a little too simple, but there was no time to embellish that. Soon the choir would be arriving. They would need copies. Would there be a few minutes to rehearse? No time to rehearse. They would have to perform it cold. Americans, what you have just heard is how a Merry Christmas came to a little Bavarian village in 1818. Franz and Father Joseph sang, accompanied by Franz's guitar and the chapel choir, and against a flickering counterpoint of quiet and candlelight, the Oberndorf parish listened in awe. Because hungry mice had hushed the church organ, the music for their midnight service had been a rush job, and yet the spontaneous creation of Franz Gruber, inspired by the simple poetry of Father Joseph Mohr, unleashed a power born of stillness, a music reflecting majesty. For the unsophisticated little Christmas song they wrote remained unrevised and is each year at Christmas time rediscovered and celebrated throughout the entire world. Silent Night. Now you know the rest of the story.
Well, we always like to listen to Paul Harvey do his thing. I just, he's one of the guys that I wish was still around, that we could. He's one of the true American iconic figures that we can't look to
good
too
common
many.
sense, and it's just not easy to find nowadays.
No, we don't have too many people that we can look up to in the media anymore, and he's just. Unfortunately, it's just not like that anymore. Anyway, we want to thank you for tuning in. I hope you had fun like we did. Don't forget you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And you just want to look things up, go to our website, stayoffmylawn.us, for all our past and present episodes.
And we'll be here next week. We'll see you then, folks.
Doodles, take care. Well, we had fun and hope you did too. The opinions heard here today are not those of anyone other than Mike and Richard. If it made you laugh or go, or even, then we've done our job. Sort of. Well, mostly anyway. And if we made you think about things in a common sense manner, we welcome you to the club. And if it didn't, then just stay off my lawn. See you next time.